Hi. It's early. I'm a deer in headlights. I've never done this before, just stand on a stage and speak. My name's Dorothy Cann Hamilton, and I'm the founder and CEO of the International Culinary Center, which a lot of you know is the French Culinary Institute, which I founded 3 blocks south of here on Grand and Broadway, and the neighborhood has changed. I'm also serving right now as the president of the USA Pavilion at the Expo, the Milan Expo, that's going to open in May. So if you don't know about the Milan Expo, you should, but we're not going to go into that right now. These people are very efficient on time, and I have 15 minutes. But we do have a website, usapavilion2015.net, and it can tell you a lot about what's going on. It's all about the future of food and how the challenge we have in feeding 9 billion people in 2050. Not that we don't have enough food for those people in 2050, we don't have enough energy to produce the food if we continue to eat the way we are. So all of you people, I am so impressed. I've been in this business for over 30 years, and I go to conferences like this, and I usually know half the people. And I don't know if I know 5% of you, and it makes me so excited, because you are the future. And when I look and see what you do in your companies, 30 years ago, not in my wildest dream would I ever think this would happen with food. So it's exciting. I'm the old person to give you perspective this morning, kick this off. We've been training chefs, sommeliers, we're food bloggers for the last 30 years. And as a school, we try to keep shoulder to shoulder or ahead of the industry. And so I had the chance today to reflect on what's the status of a chef today, and what do I think the future of a chef is. I'm sorry that I wrote these notes, but if I blah, 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 it wouldn't be as cogent. So I'm going to try to read this excitingly so it doesn't bore you. But these are my opinions. They may be relevant, they may be not. I'd love to hear from you. And my email is dhamilton@culinarycenter.com. So if you have an opinion, write to me. So what are the realities for a chef in the 21st century? So knife skills, organization, product knowledge, these are just a few of the skill sets of a professional chef, and they've had to be mastered since the 17th century when we first got our professional chefs. So when you think of it, this mastery for a chef hasn't changed in 300 years. And up through the 20th century, the innovation in the kitchen was mainly mechanical. Ovens no longer needed wood or coal. Small appliances helped then with the slicing, dicing, and shredding. So the age of technology ushered in everything from microwaves to water circulators. And the chef, with each passing decade, had at his or her disposal improved equipment. And as transportation became more immediate and affordable, we got exotic ingredients. But in this 21st century, the role of the chef is so much more complex. The chef's place today is as much outside the kitchen as it is behind the stove. In this century of technology, virtual media, genetic modification, and international camaraderie, what have we come to expect from our professional chefs? And how do we prepare them? Is it as simple as the old formula of teaching knife skills, the brigade system, and product knowledge? No. No. The past will remain prologue, and we will still see new equipment, some of it dazzling. And we will always find new or rediscovered ingredients, be it ants from the Amazon to a square squash developed by inventive seed specialists. The chef in the kitchen will still be expected to produce delicious food, honest and safe food, just as in centuries past. However, a new responsibility has been put on the shoulders of a modern-day chef. I don't know if it's due to press, social media, or the relatively new status of celebrity chef. Today, Bobby, Ferran, Chang are all one-word wonders, much like Madonna, Sting, and Beyonce. And they command handsome appearance fees. You'll find them in People magazine. And behind them are a whole crop of budding new stars on the Food Network and the 24-hour cycle of food channels. What is more amazing is that they're not only followed for their culinary knowledge, but their personal views on science, business, and world affairs. Time magazine regularly includes a chef in their 100 most influential people in the world edition. The public's appetite for a chef's opinion seems boundless. They have become advocates for government policy, think of Sam Cass, advocates for social causes, Tom Colicchio in his campaign against hunger in America. And there are the more obvious places for chefs to be involved that bridge the kitchen with the outside world. Dan Barber and his decades-long campaign on sustainability has garnered him recognition in the business world. He has been invited multiple times to be a speaker at Davos, as well as he's one of the more popular presenters on TED. So how did the chef come out of the kitchen? Does a chef even need a kitchen or a restaurant anymore? How does one schooled in the culinary arts become a credible spokesman for so much more in disciplines they have never studied formally? The baby steps really started in the 1970s. Chefs were beginning to constantly be asked to be in charity events. This brought the chef out of the kitchen and in front of the public. Andre Saltner of the highly claimed Lutèce restaurant thought it sacrilege for a chef to be out of the kitchen. Wayne Nish, the former star chef of the 80s, that restaurant sensation March, remembers having dinner at Lutèce. Andre, recognizing him, came to the table, and Wayne was bursting with pride that this juggernaut of a chef recognized him. And the first words out of Andre's mouth were, "I'm so sorry." And Wayne, confused, replied, "Sorry for what, chef?" Andre said, "Your restaurant closed, didn't it? Otherwise, why are you here tonight?" Saltner admits today, he works at the ICC, in a world of fierce competition, chefs must step out and be recognized. The old days of just cooking well and at the top of your game, well, you know what? It almost seems cozy and easy now. Back in the 70s and 80s, the charity cooking, even the appearances on the newly formed 24-hour Food Network, were invariably done for free. Chefs loved the exposure to new client bases and then the chance to work with colleagues. One would be remiss to add that another attractive perk for these people was traveling to new areas of the country or exotic parts of the world. And wow, did they party afterwards. Everybody wanted to be invited to go somewhere. Also in the 1980s, there was a crop of newly formed food and wine societies that brought chefs together with the public and with other culinary and wine professionals. First, the American Institute of Wine and Food was founded by none other than Julia Child, Robert Mondavi, and Richard Graff, and it played an enormous part in empowering culinary and wine professionals. They had this crazy idea that food and wine should be considered an art, that they thought that maybe there was a place in colleges for a curriculum, and that there should be culinary libraries, and that chefs and winemakers, farmers, scientists, they should all have a place to meet and have a voice. It was revolutionary, that idea, back in the 70s, and it was really warmly embraced by everyone. The first conference of the AIWF in Santa Barbara in '84 was euphoric. I was there, and it's remained legendary. And up until the 70s, chefs really were considered blue-collared workers. And in America, the James Beard Foundation helped change that perception. After Jim died in '85, his house was purchased by his friends and acolytes, and they made it into the Carnegie Hall for American chefs. Beard was recognized as the father of American cuisine by his passionate zeal for American products, ingredients, recipes, and cooks. The foundation began giving awards to American chefs, and by establishing an Academy Award-type celebration, the JBF brought not only honor to the most talented chefs in the country, but educated the press on how good and inventive the food in America was and had become. The chef was given his or her due, and the public wanted more, and the TV Food Network put fuel on that fire. Even in the early years, if a chef had TV shows, the financial benefits for their restaurant were enormous. By having a show on the newly formed Food Network, Chef Mary Sue Milliken of the Two Hot Tamales took the worry out of her filling her restaurant. In fact, she had to open branches. Chefs like Bobby Flay, after 20 years on the network, and now has a burger bar chain. Well, you know, he's got his house in the Hamptons, and he also has a racehorse. When did I ever think a chef would own a racehorse? But the business of being a new celebrity chef also comes with cautionary tales. Marcus, our beloved Marcus Samuelsson, one of the most talented, generous, and photogenic chefs around, shot to fame after he took the staid Swedish restaurant Aquavit to a 3-star status in the New York Times. The owner of the restaurant was overjoyed. They went on to open more restaurants in Minnesota and Stockholm. The financial largesse rolled in. The press adored Marcus world over. At a certain point, though, Marcus, like many young chefs, wanted to venture on his own, and he was rudely awakened to a new reality. When Samuelsson wanted to open restaurants under his own name, his previous partner, the owner of Aquavit, sued him. The owner claimed that through PR and restaurant investments, it was he who had grown not only Aquavit, but the brand of Marcus Samuelsson, and thus was entitled to a portion of any future compensation Marcus made on his name. You know what? In the courts, the owner won. And Marcus resolved this by actually having to pay a huge sum to buy his name back. So, you know, today, same thing happens with chefs who sign on to the Food Network. And in these really high-powered restaurant, haute cuisine chains, chefs don't own their future either. These are our new contracts. This is the new reality. Media giants can dictate whether you can accept your outside work, like the Food Network, the usage of your name, and you know they can almost own you for the rest of your professional life. And as I said, it's not just the media companies, it's the restaurant chains who have named chefs in them too. In the case where a chef becomes a star as an employee, it's the company that pays for the PR machine, the designers. They have the heavy investments in building the brand. They take all the risk. So, you know, I'm not saying, you know, it's a complicated situation. Who is making the investment in the chef? And so these are one of the challenges that we have to look at in the future. Who's going to play Solomon on this one? I don't know. Today's world client base has shrunk. Even with an expanding world population in wealth, technology, transportation, it's made us a small community. In the 1900s, the Parisians ate very well because they had a concentration of wealth, could patronize great chefs, and in turn indulge in those wonderful caviar, foie gras, and experiment even with a common egg. Similarly, in 1900, Portland, Oregon did not have that wealth and could not have kitchens with scores of cooks. They relied only on their delicious ingredients and solid cooking techniques. Today, they still do, but those chefs command the world's attention, and Parisians fly there to eat. Our competition is worldwide. It isn't just a restaurant down the street. They can you can train in the best schools and work in the best restaurants around the world, but you can now go home to Oregon and really have a fabulous restaurant. So chefs today have another challenge if they're striving to be the best. No longer do they have to just face the competition. Even if you're staying in your own home, the world is your competition. This winter, and you know, it isn't like they're just over there. Rene Redzepi closed his restaurant, and now he's upped his whole staff and the whole restaurant and gone to Tokyo. So now he's moving in down the street from you. My head is spinning at the moment, thinking how much we demand from our chefs. Does the restaurant really need a social statement? Do you want a social statement from every restaurant you go in? Will we primarily rely on the media to source which restaurants we dine? Will we eat a chef's good food in a humble place? Or do we need the bells and whistles of a grand theater and all that investment? Does the chef have to have a media presence and a personality to match? With the shrinking and endangered food supplies, is the chef responsible for choice on the plate, along with educating his consumer about it? High-end restaurants cooking the hautest of cuisine are enormously expensive to run. Many of the three-star chefs are now charging over $500 a meal, or find the need to open bistros or bars on the side because, as one of them told me, I have to pay my kids' tuition. Let's not forget, and I'm on my last thing, let's not forget to be savvy business people too, managers, entrepreneurial, always conscious of our competition, while maintaining the discipline of constant attention to cooking and hospitality. A century ago, a chef's greatest challenge was health and financial viability, knowing how to cook correctly and deliver a pretty delicious meal, and you had a successful restaurant. Today, a budding chef looking to own his own business or her own business has to understand management, real estate, brand building, media outreach, nutrition, sanitation, sustainability, farming practices on the land, the sea, technological advances for the kitchen, competitive advantage, and you gotta know how to cook and build a brigade. These are continual and growing for the opening day of a restaurant. Crazy? Despite it all, who would go in this profession? Loads of people. They love it. It's like a starving artist. They have to do it. They have a fraternity like no other I've ever seen. They are generous, talented, and enormously committed. They are, for the most part, and this is the most important thing I'm going to say today, they are beloved by society, almost more than any other profession. You know why? We don't trust clergymen anymore. We don't trust politicians. We don't trust people anymore. You must trust a chef. They're doing something intimate for you. They're making food you're going to put in your body. With this trust and adulation, is it crazy, with that growing list of skills demanded by the public, that you know what I think is going to happen? One day, because of this adulation and trust, chefs are going to be asked to rule the world. Just think of it. We'll settle all our geopolitical differences by enjoying a great meal and a beautiful glass of wine. Now, that's a world I look forward to. Thank you.